Any questions?
So we did the yoga today, and we talked about the borderlessness. And you mentioned something about it being really very vast, something equivalent. And when I see it, for me, it doesn't seem like there is nothingness, or there is no border per se, or the borders are fuzzy, but it doesn't seem like it's so big, so vast, because all I'm seeing is either perception, and perception is not big, or thoughts or sensations. They all seem to appear in a space, but the space doesn't seem infinite.
So if it doesn't seem infinite, it's because you see borders.
Like I said, it's fuzzy in the edges, but yeah, it could be. I mean, yeah.
I don't see borders.
It seems like it's an effort to make it vast.
Oh, yeah, but that's a misunderstanding. It's not about making it vast. It's about seeing whether there are borders or not.
Exactly. So it seems to disappear into nothingness. So I don't see borders per se.
Okay.
But it seems, so for example, I don't see the space as big as this room. I don't know. I mean, it just,
Okay, let's take it at that. Everything you see in this room appears in this space, right?
yeah.
Therefore, the space has to be bigger than the room if it contains everything that appears in the room.
So this is where I get stuck. We've talked about us not perceiving the object, but perceiving perception.
Yeah, but don't go with the intellect into that. What I'm referring to is the immediate perception. So there is the space of awareness, if you will, in which the body and the world appear. Right? Yeah. And they are not neatly separate in this appearance. And if this space contains the world, it is bigger than the world it contains. If you will, as an experience, the world which is our immediate surroundings. You see, that in that sense, it's a very simple, almost childish view of the world and of the body that I'm referring to. So this view of the world and of the body, which is childish and which we cultivate, during our dialogues, you using then the rational function of the mind, we can understand that after all it is not as childish as it seems at first sight. In that sense, that because there is no evidence that consciousness is limited in any fashion or form, and if we are open to the possibility that consciousness is universal, this seemingly childish experience in which the world seems to be contained within awareness, then is in line, is consistent with this hypothesis. In other words, it's childish only from the vantage point that, according to which awareness is limited by this body-mind. Then it's childish.
But for me, that initial experience of perception is just perception. Like you had mentioned earlier, how you break down a perception with subsequent thoughts about the individual objects in the perception. So it's just a perception.
And?
So, and like you said, there's no distance between perception and the perceiver.
Yes.
So I don't see because it just collapses as a perception. The world collapses as a perception.
What is there between perceptions?
Not knowing.
No.
Or space.
I mean, because if we say not knowing, there is a knower that doesn't know. Not knowing refers to a knower. A knower that can know or not know. Without a knower, there is no not knowing, right?
Yeah. Or space. Or space between perceptions.
Yeah.
They appear in the space.
Yeah, and that is space which I refer to when I say it's borderless. It's borderless.
Right.
And so whatever is usually experientially, what is there between two bodily sensations is deemed to be our body, right? In other words, our body is not exclusively comprised of sensations. Experientially.
Perception and sensations, right? Because I perceive my body.
Well, so then if your body is comprised only of, let's say, of bodily sensations, I don't think that's I think that there is something more, because then it would mean that between two bodily sensations there is nothing, there is not your body. And then, since we use, our body is more that which cements together our bodily sensations, that which is the common ground of all the bodily sensations, right? It's not just bodily sensation like that, like flashes in nothingness. Experientially, because we use a single noun, body, so it refers to an experience which has some continuity over time, not something that comes and goes like the sensations and is always different.
Then what is the continuous thing?
Well, it is the space in which the sensations appear, right? That's our, the point I'm trying to make is that if we try to see experientially what the experience of the body is, it is twofold. It is phenomenally, as you said, the bodily sensations and some sense perception, if I see my hand. But there is also a noumenal component to the experience, which is the space in which these sensations appear, and which kind of maintains the togetherness of these sensations. Because we don't have a new body with every new sensation, you see what I mean? And the body doesn't come and go, which is with each sensation. So, because we have only one word, not as many words, otherwise we wouldn't have even the word body. We would have the word pain in the neck, pain in the toothache, pain in the knee, hunger, etc. But
so then, are you implying that because I, in some ways, sense my body as the space?
The first thing to understand about the yoga is that if we try to rationally make sense of it, what it is about changing the way we perceive the body and the world to make it consistent with the universality of consciousness. If consciousness is universal, it follows that the universe is the body of awareness, meaning our real body. And the only thing we are trying to do is to ask the question, am I perceiving the universe as my body? Okay, simple question. Am I perceiving the universe as my body, or I am somehow on the perception level perceiving a separation between these two, right? And if yes, the goal of the yoga is to see that this separation, in fact, doesn't separate anything, and therefore that there is no such a separation. In other words, to shift from a separate perception to a real perception, which has never been separate, which has always been one. So that's, if you want to use your intelligence to try to understand what we do during the yoga, that's what I've just said. Okay? And then the rest, they are just techniques that may work in your case or may not work in your case, that may work one day and that may not work up until the day when they work. They are just techniques, the goal of which is to achieve this transition, this shift. Okay? They have no rational foundation. So if you try to say, oh, that's not what I perceive, that's not the point here. The point is the efficiency. The example I use is, the analogy I use is, let's assume someone is taking singing lessons, right? And the voice teacher tells this person, okay, your voice is not at the right place. You see this jar in front there? Now sing in the jar. It doesn't mean anything, singing in the jar. Rationally, it has no meaning whatsoever. So the person may say, well, I cannot do that. It's not possible unless I go there and I put the jar. And the voice teacher says, no, don't move, don't go there. Stay where you are, just sing in the jar. Then it may be that say, no, I cannot do that. The prof, the voice teacher will say, okay, I'm sorry, but try to see another teacher, you know. But it may be that she makes a good faith attempt, you see, to sing in the jar, and then it operates a change in the placement of her voice, and the teacher tells her, you see, now that's where you have to be. Then eventually, she doesn't use the jar any longer. Once she has the muscle memory of the correct position, then the jar is no longer useful. But so this jar was meaningless. Actually, the teacher could just have said, you see, there is no jar there. Imagine there is one. And sing in this, right, in this jar. The result would have been the same. So rationally, it doesn't make any sense. Because we are not in the sense-making business here. We are in the efficiency business. And the efficiency is to operate this shift in the way we perceive the body and the world, and whatever works, anything goes.
Right. I mean, that, I guess, for me, experientially, when we do this, my body is the space. That's how I experience it.
But then there is nothing to do. Because then what I am saying is just a description of your experience.
Right.
Because really, I'm not asking you to do anything. You see, that in this yoga, the essence of this yoga, that's what it's called the direct path, is that it's a bodily sensation version of the direct path. The jnana version of the direct path is you are already that which you are looking for. But these are words intellectually, right? So that's on the path of thought. But there is an analogon of that, something, a correspondent aspect on the level of the bodily sensation. And that's what we are doing here. So, just as on the path of knowledge, we have to realize consciousness is already whole and complete and is already universal. I don't need to make consciousness universal. I just have to be open to the possibility and then verify that it is universal. Similarly here, we are not asked on the level of sensation to expand the body, to change the body, or to change anything, but simply to see that if we remain on the level of pure sensation, which without interference of thought, it is already the case that there is no borders. It's already the case. You see, that's why it's a direct path, because there is nothing to do to change. It's already the case.
I guess the confusion for me is the borderlessness. In the sense, does it translate to dimensions of space? Vast dimensions, or it seems like there is borderlessness, but just not the vastness. And I thought that was what not knowing was. Not knowing...
Did I use the word vastness? I don't think
No.
so. I used the word borderlessness.
Yes, you did. But there was maybe something that maybe alluded, or I took it as that.
Borderlessness is sufficient because our experience of the universe, unless we are an astronomer looking at, through her telescope, it's for us the universe for all practical purposes, this room here, right? At night we don't see much outside, perhaps you see more, but for me it's this room, that's a universe. Experientially, right? So in other words, there is no need to see that it is borderless up to the, way back in time, zillions of years to the Big Bang. No. But just to see that that's enough, if there are no borders here, that's for all practical purposes as good as infinite.
Thank you.
In fact, the moment you move, if you will, beyond the body, that's beyond the...
You started the meditation with, I can't remember the exact instruction, but it was something to the effect of meditation being effortless. And I've noticed I've actually been doing this quite a bit where, I can't be completely effortless. I've got some self-enquiry to do. Like there's still a sense of but I have to remain vigilant. I have to, because ignorance could come by at any second, and...
No, but we have to understand what effortlessness means. If you feel like doing whatever you are doing, being self-inquiry or thinking about what you are going to do next weekend, if it is what you want to do at that moment, it's effortless. The example, if I play tennis, it can be a lot of effort for the body. But if I want to be doing that at that moment, it's effortless. Now, if I feel that I have to play tennis, and actually I'm not enjoying it, I don't want to do it, but I play tennis because I'm a tennis coach and I need to make money, so it's different, so then there is effort. Effortlessness is when we agree completely with whatever is going on and we are doing. In other words, effortless meditation doesn't exclude investigation or anything else. What it wants to exclude is effort, meaning conflict. I want it, and at the same time I don't want it. So it forces us to make up our mind. What do I really want? And then go for it. The next moment you may want something different. Go for it, because follow the path of effortlessness. Because the path of effortlessness is a safe path which ultimately will take you to ultimate effortlessness. Are you following me? Because the goal is ultimate effortlessness. So if you add more effort, you are moving in the wrong direction. It's like water flowing from the mountain to the ocean. The water is not stupid. It never flows upwards. It never flows upwards. It's very smart. And as a result, it always ends up in the ocean, always. It's the same. With this metaphor, to flow towards the ocean means to flow downwards, means to flow in the direction of effortlessness, because that's the direction of the ultimate effortlessness. And I know that is politically incorrect, and it is spiritually incorrect, because ignorance lives in the culture of effort. You see that everywhere. A perfect society will be a society of effortlessness where everybody would follow a vocation. In other words, because there are things that some people like doing, other people, they don't like to do it. Case in point, mathematics. Who likes to study mathematics? You see? But some people... Yeah, but some people do. Yeah, I'm one of those. So you see, so there is room for everybody. There are all kinds of vocations. Some people like cooking, some people they don't. Some people they like cleaning. They have this cleaning thing. Some people they don't.
Thank you.
Some people like acting. They become actors. If they are not too good, they become politicians.
Hey, France, what if that effort, what if you see yourself going on a line of thought?
What?
If you see yourself going on a line of thought as a person that you know is going to get you in trouble down the way.
If you really know that, at that moment, it stops.
But sometimes it feels like an effort to, it can seem like there's a resistance saying, you know, whatever the content could be.
Well, we have to understand the real meaning of effortlessness. This effortlessness is taken in the context. What it means is I am doing what I really want to be doing. That's what it means. It means there is nothing, given the context, given the constraints that the context involves, that's what I want to be doing. And I've no second thoughts about it. Are you following me? It may be something which is, your wife has gone on a trip and you don't like taking the garbage out. And it piles up in the house. At some point, the smell is not too good. So the smell reaches a level at some point where you have no choice but to take the garbage out. You're following me? At
Yes.
that moment, that's really what you want to do.
I didn't think of it that way.
It becomes effortless.
And about the yoga meditation, I feel like today, after today, I think in some aspect prior, it could be effort, but also I think the way I was doing the meditation is maybe too much focus on just the sensations, kind of seeing what they are, but almost expecting a different outcome or something to happen to the sensations. But today, it became very clear to me that you let them do whatever they're going to do. But that's right. Is that correct?
Yes, you don't control. Because it's an illusion that we control sensations. When we control sensations, we perpetuate the illusion of a separate controller. So when we try to control a sensation, we create another sensation or a thought and a sensation. That is the controlling sensation. And the controller exists as this controlling thought or as this controlling sensation. And the controller, the limited entity, perpetuates its seeming existence through this activity. Whereas when we take if you think about consciousness, consciousness does nothing. Everything is allowed in consciousness. Consciousness doesn't interfere with the content of consciousness any more than a mirror interferes with the reflections that it reflects, right? So if we take this position of welcoming in, welcoming out, if you will, we, by default, so to speak, take our stand as consciousness instead of taking our stand as a person. The moment we control, then we are taking our stand as a controller, controlling entity, which appears as controlling thoughts and controlling activities. And the controlling entity has its existence only as, appears only, and maintains its seeming existence only as these controlling activities. So the moment we stop controlling, there is no room for a personal limited entity. You see, it vanishes. And at that moment, we enter the meditation. Because my definition of the meditation is when we don't believe to be a separate entity. You see? And this not believing to be a separate entity can have two different aspects. One is a temporary suspension of the belief. That's when we do the meditation from 3 to 3:45. We, in this controlled environment, if you will, we have the possibility, an easy possibility, to temporarily suspend ignorance. And the other aspect is through the understanding. Through the understanding, through a glimpse of truth, we eradicate the belief to be a separate entity. This belief, having been eradicated through the understanding, remains, however, as leftovers, as imprints in the body-mind. So that's why we use this two-pronged approach here. On one hand, through the understanding, through the direct glimpse of our true nature, we inject lethal poison into ignorance, and then ignorance starts agonizing. And I'm looking at the doctor, so he loves my metaphors. And then, with the yoga, what we do, we have a baseball bat, and we just hit the agonizing body of ignorance. What?
Thank you.
I'm so new, so and forgive me if I ask redundant question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, right now I'm overly joyed because I find your answer is right to my point, all my questions. Like the effortless. Yesterday I asked a question about meditation, what should I do? And there's so many methods out there. Sometimes I was confused which one I should follow. But today you gave me the right answer. It's effortless method, which is, it makes sense because every being we made differently will have our unique path to go. So there are no such universal method can feed for everyone. And it's like Kundalini energy. There are so many intelligence.
Let's not go there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So for me,
if I do effortless meditation, that means the right intelligence, what I need from universe, they will give me the right force and the work where I need it to. And thank you for that advice. That's number one. Number two is I'm an energy chaser. So I like to go after, big names and try to see how their energy feel are different. And today I feel your unique signature. It's very interesting. And I'm still cooking, still working on it to try to figure out where that energy lead me to, but definitely I will be back. My first question is, we say, the consciousness, right, can be effortless, create endless miracles, including every one of us. Why it creates so many perceptionally speaking, virtual separation beings? Why does that? It's perfect because it's too lonely, because it's only one? What's the purpose for the unique consciousness to create so many confused beings like me? I'm serious. I'm deadly serious, that's my question.
The easy answer, the not nerdy answer, is why not?
It's too lonely.
The nerdy answer, I'm not sure I'm going to give it, but I'm going to give it in a nutshell so that you can elaborate on it, is that the question about why duality, right? Why this creation? Why duality? Assumes implicitly duality. Because if I ask why A, I am expecting the answer because of B. B being different from A. Therefore, if you ask why this, because of that, that's what you want me to say, because of that. But then there will be this and that. So in your question, you are assuming that there is this and that. And my answer is, sorry, there is only this.
Yeah, I get it. That's why sometimes I don't want to speak anymore, because no point to talk, because the world is just it is.
That's why I think that why not is the better answer.
And another, my second question is, I see I can be in everything, so that is one perception, right? One gift I got in my basket. Another thing is during the meditation, I can be drawn into this totally like a black hole. It's like no end and totally emptiness, 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 and the forever emptiness. How these two pictures get together?
Yes, but this emptiness that you are referring to is still some kind of blank state that you are projecting in the mind. It corresponds to some image in the mind. The real awareness is really invisible, and therefore the mind can never picture it. So it's very important to see that clearly, that the mind cannot never have a picture of awareness. Okay. Awareness doesn't want to be on a selfie.
Okay. Selfie. Okay, thank you so much.
The
C'est
self
génial.
doesn't want to be on a selfie.
Okay. C'est génial. Merci beaucoup.
Oh, you talked about the sense of me, and when I say me, it's like I want to go here, or here, or here. That's me, or it's
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah.
Does the sense of me eventually dissipate or go
Well,
into everything you see?
It doesn't have to dissipate. We have simply to see that the sense of me is not me. Why? Because I'm perceiving it. I'm the awareness who is perceiving it. And this sense of me is the story. Well, it's a train of thought and of memories. And the feeling of me, bodily sensations. I am the perceiver of all of that stuff.
Thank you, thank you.
So, kind of by definition, awareness is there all of the time. And yet, the experience of being consciously aware of being aware seems to come and go. Or there's these moments of like, oh, here I am being aware, or something like that, which is, of course, even itself a commentary on being aware rather than awareness itself. But there's this preference that arises for those moments of conscious awareness over the ones of it seeming submerged in experience, and yet making that effort that you're talking about to try to be aware seems counterproductive or not the point. So what is there to do with this kind of coming and going and having a preference and wanting more moments of that conscious awareness?
We have first to be open to the possibility. We have first to understand what the experience of being aware of awareness feels like. Because we often have the wrong idea of what it feels like. So, what it feels like, I'm going to give you a train of, it feels like peace, happiness, absence of worries, clarity, contentment, affection, gratitude, beauty. And everything I've mentioned, you could see that you cannot have one without the other. You cannot, for instance, have the experience of love without being happy, right? Or worrying. Love is happiness, happiness is love, etc. Peace, you cannot be happy and not be at peace. You see, so all of that, I gave you different colors of the same experience. But the moment I describe it like that, it enables you to understand that the presence of the manifestation of the world doesn't exclude or preclude the possibility to be aware of awareness at the same time when we are aware of the world, because we all human beings have had, even fleetingly, the experience of being happy in the presence of objects of the world, of having a loving moment, or having a moment free from worries in the presence of the world, right? So, the presence of the world is not an obstacle that prevents us from perceiving our true nature. But the presence of the world is not necessary. In other words, in the absence of manifestation, our true nature knows itself as this peace, which is the peace of the background, if you will, the peace that permeates everything and in which everything arises. So the first, because often we understand being aware of awareness as a different type of experience, not being this experience of being simply without worries, you see, simply being at home in the world, if you will. So that's the correction that we need to make, and also to understand that the presence of the world doesn't preclude this experience, because then the sage Atmananda Krishna Menon, he tells a story that he was meditating in his house. He was trying to meditate. He was trying to go to the experience of awareness, knowing awareness. That's a yogic approach. And then there was the rickshaws in the street making noise, and the people screaming. And this thought came, I don't want this noise. It prevents me from the experience of awareness, knowing awareness. It disturbs my yogic activities. But then he understood the fallacy of his attitude, and then he said, no. Come in, noise, come in, welcome everything. I am all of that, you see? And then the peace was restored. So this worrylessness is simply a byproduct that comes to the surface as a result of getting established in the peace of our true nature, you see? And it doesn't come right away, all of at once. It's over a period of years that it permeates everything in our life. So it's something that we have kind of we have to give it tender, loving care to it. You know, that's what we are doing here. You go to the guru, you get the seed, then it sprouts, and then you give it TLC.
Yeah, the kind of presence or the kind of awareness I'm talking about is the kind that seems to just kind of like bubble up and in and out, like in the course of like, yes. I'm driving the car, or I'm brushing my teeth, or whatever. It's just kind of coming and going.
And that which I don't recommend, spiritual incorrectness, is focusing on objects. So I don't know if it is what is called mindfulness, but if mindfulness means to focus on the objects, on the sensation, whatever, to be present. You know, I want to be present. There is a table. I want to be present to the table. There is a flower. I want to be present. I want to be present to the flower. I mean, who wants to live like that? It's impossible. Thanks God. You see what I mean? It's a life of. I mean, it's better to do 10 years of forced labor. You see, so that's why here the path is effortlessness. So of course, with the path of effortlessness, we should be refusing people, right? We have only 65 here, right? So in fact, effortlessness, that should attract people like, like honey attracts bees, But fortunately, we have the political and spiritual incorrectness that regulates the flow.
Thank you.
One of the experience I went to.
Microphone. Yeah, because people in other places need to hear you.
It's just a small comment. And once I went to a place, they have the mindfulness meditation, so I was learning, and they teach us how to be mindfulness. I go home in the morning, I was like eating my breakfast with some seaweed, and I was like, oh, let's try mindfulness. Immediately, I see the ocean wave coming to me, and whoops, and I was like, oh my God, this is powerful. So I stopped doing it because I think if I eat everything, I'm like, go back to the source. Well,
You have a very good imagination.
sorry.
No, very, very powerful, from the seaweed to the sea.
Yeah, that's one of my experience.
During the yoga meditation, this has happened before too. I experienced all the sounds and sensations like all overlapping in a single point, or sometimes I perceive them as like there's no information about location. And I wonder if you could tell me more about if that's helpful or if that's what that's about.
I don't see what you mean, your description overlapping on a single point,
Yeah, just like they're all just here. There's no information about that they're out. They're in space. They're in their spatial location of them.
I don't care about the past, but right now, if you close your eyes and you have sensations of your body, of the contact of the chair, between the chair and your body, and the sound of my voice and sound in the kitchen. So there is a space in which all of that appears. And there is some kind of a feeling, whatever, of a distribution in space of all these occurrences.
So that's not just a concept?
That's why I use the word space to stick to the experience, because that's how we formulate it. But again, it's here during the dialogues, what we can do is to justify, in a sense, what we do, to justify, because here we use reason, so we can try to justify rationally what we do during the yoga. But because what happens during the yoga, to a very large extent, is irrational, there is no point in trying to have rational explanations for what is irrational.
I guess I'm curious about, is there some effort that's made to create the sense of space and separation of perceptions?
You shouldn't. It should be, you should take what I say during this moment simply as a kind of a description of your experience, and try to see from my eyes, if you will, what I see. Imagine that I'm describing what you see, what you are seeing at that moment, what you are perceiving. And at a certain point you should say, yes, that's my experience in this moment, that's what I am seeing, that's what I am perceiving. In a sense, the teaching involves, on one hand, the sharing of some understanding that we reach through this, but also the sharing of some experiencing, which is not necessarily easy to do just with rational words or rational explanation. It's like if you want to learn how to play the violin, I'm not sure that if you read a book telling you, okay, you place the first finger on that position, second finger on that position, etc., and the bow like this, and all the details, it may help a little bit, but you're never going to play at Carnegie Hall. You see, you need someone to show you how it's done, and also some feedback you need, asking, am I on the right path, and also you need to play the music yourself. Otherwise you need to conduct the experiment and through trial and error to discover on your own. You know, it took me time to understand this approach of the body, which is extremely powerful and extremely necessary. Because if we limit our approach to just the intellectual aspect, and if we never deal with the gut feeling of separation, it's very difficult to be stable. Because I may think I'm not separate, but if here there is a scream that says, oh no, I am separate, it's not a very stable situation. So we need to do both.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier that there could be many teachers giving different types of teachings pointing to the same truth, and that we should pick the one that resonates with us the most and get to that. Which does help, because for me, I find it much easier if I just dumb it down everything to be just perceptions and thoughts and sensations and everything. But the inquisitive mind tries to wants to understand the other analogies that are given by you and other people as well, about the dream analogy in this case. So in the dream, when you are dreaming yourself or somebody to be at a certain location, experiencing something with a certain person, in the dream, of course, it seems very real, and then when you wake up, you know that that was all generated by your consciousness.
Yeah. In this case, even by your limited mind.
Correct. So in the awakened state, I am not able to wrap my head around the fact that, okay, all this is generated by my consciousness, but I don't see that the other 65 people here are just in my consciousness, and they're not real. Of course, we are all here and we are real, so it's just at that point of time, it seems that, just to give an example, if I were to talk to a person in a dream and the person is telling me about the suffering, I would be also feeling the suffering and all, but when I wake up, I would say, oh, it's just a dream. But in this awakened state, if a person is talking about the suffering and I'm listening to that, it does not translate easily for me that, oh, this is just not real.
And rightfully so. Because what we have to understand regarding the dream state versus the waking state is that when in the teaching we speak about the dream, it's as an analogy. And when we draw an analogy, we have to be careful to be precise regarding what element in the analogy corresponds to what element in real life. So here, in real life, we have the waking state. In the analogy, the waking state corresponds to the dream state. But then, in the analogy, there is the waking state. What is the correspondent in real life of the waking state in the analogy?
Consciousness?
Right. It is consciousness. So for instance, it is consciousness, reality. So what this analogy is telling us is that in relation to reality / consciousness, this waking state is not real as having an independent existence from consciousness, from reality. But as reality, it is very real. That is often misunderstood, especially in traditional Advaita. Often traditional Advaita has some idealist and sometimes even solipsist slant to it, which we don't find in Tantrism, for instance, in Kashmirian Shaivism. The world is real. People are real, and the consciousness in them is a real consciousness. The world is real. It's just that it is real as consciousness. It is not real as having an independent existence from consciousness. So that has to be clearly seen. In other words, otherwise people are suffering and we don't feel compassion. That's not normal,
Exactly.
you see?
Right. Thank you.
So when you said the world is real with respect to consciousness, is this the same as when you say everything is made of consciousness?
Yes, but regarding to develop a little more, the impersonal attitude towards the world is we behave as if it were real, knowing deeply that it isn't. In other words, there are two levels. There is at the ultimate level of reality, nothing matters. But on the level of the universe, it does matter. So that leads to the karma yoga as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, I am paraphrasing, but basically, act in the world as if it mattered, knowing that ultimately it doesn't. Go to the battlefield, kill your teachers, your parents, and so on to do your duty, your dharma, right? But these warriors, they are already dead, because as such, they are not real, right? But Krishna doesn't tell Arjuna, oh, it's an illusion, therefore do nothing. You see? Act as if it mattered. Do what you have to do, even if it is painful and difficult, but knowing that ultimately it doesn't matter. Therefore, do the actions, the proper action, act impersonally, without being attached to the outcome, because the outcome doesn't matter. You see, that's...
Just with respect to that, you know, you've mentioned this, and I've not quite gotten it, is when you say everything is made of consciousness.
Made of the real nature of everything is consciousness. That's what I mean. The real nature, the real substance of everything is consciousness.
Because it's reality?
Yes. In the same sense, if you will, is the substance of water is H2O, right? And then the substance of H2O is H and O, and the substance of H is one proton, one electron, and the substance of the proton is a few quarks, and etc. So we go down to a level which is more and more and more substantial, and then there is absolute substance, right? In other words, the buck stops with absolute substance, which is the reality, which is that which cannot not exist. Right? That's reality. That which cannot not exist.
Okay, thank you.
And I cannot prove to you, again, I cannot prove to you the existence of that which cannot not exist. But as I say it, for some of us, immediately we know yes. something exists that cannot not exist, and out of which everything is made. You see, because there is something rather than nothing. And the moment there is something rather than nothing, this something could not have come into existence because where from? And it cannot go out of existence because where to, right? That which is never ceases to be, that which is not never comes into being.
So during the yoga meditation, actually a little bit after, I had like a flash of an experience that when I close my eyes, the world is gone and disappears, and then I open it and it's back. And I guess my question is that true?
No, because you hear the noises.
Yeah.
But we have to make a distinction between the world and our perception of the world.
And if the world is an illusion, then why would we interact with it as if it were real?
What we mean by illusion is in relation to a higher level of reality. For instance, if you have a ring made of gold, before this ring was made, the gold it is made out of existed. And at some point this ring will cease to exist. I don't know, it will be melted back into gold, or it will be lost somewhere. But the gold will survive the ring. Therefore, from that vantage point, the ring is less real than the gold. Are you following me? For the following reason, is that you can have the gold without the ring, but you cannot have the ring without the gold. Right? Therefore, the gold is more real than the ring. It doesn't mean that the ring is a complete illusion. It is simply less real than the gold. There is a hierarchy of reality, you see? But as such, the ring can have a certain type of function, like being around the finger, but it is not as real as the gold. So in the same way, this waking state has a level of reality which is much higher than the dream state, but which is not as high as the absolute state of reality of consciousness. That's all. So from the vantage point of this state on the relative level, it is real. So we are here as human body minds. We play the game of life, knowing that it is a game. But we play it well. We play it the best we can. You see? But at the same time, unafraid, because we know that ultimately our ultimate reality is unshakable. You see? That's a beauty to be if you will, to live simultaneously on two levels. One in which we have absolute safety, and another one at which we play the game. So it's like you play tennis and you fight for the point as if your life depended on it, but knowing full well that it is not the case, right? But that which makes the game interesting is that you fight. Otherwise, you better not play tennis if you don't fight for the point. So that's the lesson of the Bhagavad Gita. You play the game of life as if it mattered, but if you fail, don't worry, because the outcome is not important.
So then it doesn't, you don't like attain a higher level of consciousness by like renouncing all your possessions and leading a monastic life?
I mean, there are all kinds of, I respect all kinds of tastes and choices. It reminds me, when I was in Bordeaux, I was going to this macrobiotic restaurant because it was the only vegetarian game in town. And the people who were running this restaurant, and you know, macrobiotic is very as monastic as it goes, you know. Basically, it's brown rice, a few, 3 or 4 beans of azukis, then 1 leaf of lettuce, and gomasio. That's about it. And so these people were very, I mean, they were really devotee of Osawa, or whatever the name of the guy was. And, but they were interested in my thing, and and also they smoked a lot, because because in macrobiotics, smoking is yang. So in macrobiotic, yin is bad, yang is good, smoking is yang, sugar is not good because it's yin, etc. So they asked me, and they had two kids, and they asked me about my teacher, and I organized for them a meeting with my teacher because they were traveling and they happened to be in the proximity of where he lived. And my teacher lived in a nice house, very much like it, a little more expensive than this one, like 4 times. And so they visited him, and the maid introduced them, and they had this meeting. And then I had the feedback from them. And the feedback from them was, wow, this guy, he lives there. They were expecting a Zen monk, right? He lives there, and he's not spiritual. And then I had the feedback from my teacher. And the feedback from my teacher said, oh, I saw the people your friends that you sent me, and they were there smoking in my face without asking for whether it was inconvenient to me. And I could see that they wanted me to live in a cage or in a cave, and from time to time they would bring me 2 oranges. I could see their children who were obviously malnourished, which was true. And yeah, so these were the 2 stories. And 20 years later, and a few years later, the two divorced. I don't remember the teacher, etc. What happened with the kids. 20 years later, I give in the same region of France, in the southwest of France, in the Dordogne this time, I give a retreat, and a guy is there, and his face is familiar to me. And then he comes, and it was this man. And he tells me, you know, I regret at the time when you sent me to your teacher. I was so stupid, not to understand, not to have. I was full of criticism, full of preconceived ideas and belief systems, and I didn't take advantage of what he had to offer. So that's the story. Besides, let's assume, I mean, caves are hard to find here. Let's assume we find a cave in the mountain here. We call it Arunachala 2.0, up in the mountain. With the mountain lions, the coyotes, the rattlesnakes, the scorpions. And Francis sits in the cave there with all of that. So the one who visit me there, raise your hand. Liars. Right? and then, moreover, you will have to do the circumambulation around.
Bring my shovel and start right now.
You mentioned the distinction between your perception of the world. I didn't understand what that means. How do I make a distinction between the world and my perception of it?
Yeah, no, it's for instance, if we look at this flower, right? It's obvious that what you see and what I see are different. Right? Because I'm closer. For me, the flower is big. For you, it's small, right?
Right.
And you are looking at this side, and I'm looking at that side. So your perception of the flower and my perception of the flower are different. But we see the same flower, right?
Yes.
So the perception of the flower is different from the flower.
Got it. Thanks.
I'm not really care, but I still want to ask the question, pretend I care. And
don't do that. Ask only questions that you care about.
Okay, I part of me, I still care, okay? Is this, in this reality, I'm talking about the soul and the super soul stuff, how much free will I will have?
Free will as who? As a human being?
That means I have nothing.
As a human being?
Well, the egoistic mind.
No, because if we look at our experience as human beings,
yes,
the thoughts, they come to us, we don't choose them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
They come to us like the weather.
Right.
They are cosmic events just
Right.
like the weather is a cosmic event. So, as human beings, we don't choose our thoughts. If we don't choose our thoughts, we don't choose our decisions,
Right.
because our decisions, they come as thoughts. So, in fact, as human beings, we have zero freedom.
So if I make mistake, don't blame me.
Right. But don't blame others.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, is that we are not guilty from our past mistakes. That's the bonus for us. But what is good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So it's also true of others. So just as we don't judge ourselves for past actions, we don't judge others.
When we talk about that, that leads to me another question, which is supposedly when we die, there are clear lights or whatever, and eventually certain
What?
clear lights, they can grab clear lights, and
Clear lights,
when we die,
or we cross this bridge when we come to it.
okay, so I was just wondering if when we die, why we have to face the judgment.
I don't have information. These guys, they have a special information.
Okay. Yeah, that's an answer too. I'm wondering.
I don't have this direct line with the afterlife.
Okay. Okay. What do you think about karma?
Define karma.
Yeah, that's God's hands make us do right or wrong in humans' eyes, so.
Whose karma?
Well, certainly that is a separated being is saying things,
What is this separate
It's
being?
me. Yeah, I got your answer.
I don't see one here. I don't see a separate being.
Yeah, I got your answer. Yeah, thank you.